Hello, hello, and welcome to the Hiram Connection with your host, Unique
and Janice, where today's topic is the power of our voice. Now, as women entrepreneurs, we have to make sure that we find a way of expressing ourselves.
Right.
As unique individuals with our own style and our own flair, and utilizing our own experiences to express that.
Right.
And ultimately, how we communicate with other people solidifies ourselves in this world, and it also will reflect on how other people will relate to us. You know, as women, we still kind of struggle with that quote-unquote outdated reputation of being accommodating or submissive in the workplace.
Right.
And in today's world, we have to be willing to express ourselves clearly and concisely, even when it could be controversial, or even when we can be judged more harshly than our peers, our counterparts.
Right. And I think that becomes a challenge as women because depending on how that voice is expressed, sometimes you can be deemed as coming off being mean or sounding sometimes a little foolish, quote unquote.
Or combative.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So I was trying to kind of keep it, but yes, and that's true. It's like the flip side of that. If you don't express your voice in whatever situation it may be, then when you stay silent, then it's like, okay, is that really the wiser choice? Or are you silently agreeing with the consensus? Because sometimes the saying goes that if you're silent, then that means that you agree, which is not necessarily true,
right?
As we know. I think the reasons, or some of the reasons I'll share that I think that we should use our own unique voice, especially as entrepreneurs, is that you may have ideas or share things or experiences or knowledge that no one else may have. You can't necessarily assume that the obvious is the obvious. I think it's important to remember that our experience and knowledge has value, and we have to always remember that. No one else has our unique perspective as an entrepreneur, as individuals. So you're not doing yourself any favors when you're not sharing that expertise.
Unique, and with that, people can get a better sense of your relatability and your credibility. And it builds a sense of consistency and also shows how trustworthy you can be.
Right.
When you're able to express your voice, people get to understand what you truly stand for and what your values are. Because when you're in that boardroom or when you're standing in front of your employees or potential employees or potential clients, I would say, you shape your own image.
Right.
Right. And you have to find that good balance of where you're comfortable and that place where you embrace your own voice, that voice that's completely yours.
Right. And that's a great point. And I would say another thing with using your own unique voice is that you can demonstrate that you are invested. You're invested in what you're doing. You're invested in providing that service or experience to those potential clients or employees or whoever that audience is. And I think that's really important. And as you're demonstrating that investment or how invested you are in the process, then I would also say that that brings forth that honesty from that unique voice. And from honesty, that builds trust. And trust is important, especially as an entrepreneur, because you want people to buy in to whatever that service is that you're offering.
Right.
And if you don't establish that and you don't, you don't engage them,
build that solid foundation.
Right. I think that's, I think it's important. So, like I said, you demonstrate that investment, and that investment leads to that honesty and that truth and trust.
I like that. I like that. The truth and trust. And when you're finding your own voice, it can seem like a daunting task. It can seem like it's so intimidating at first, but it's quite easy. You just have to make sure that when you're speaking to other people, you're being genuine about your own thoughts and your ideas.
Right.
You have the power in everything that you say. And some of those things that you can do to help build that is that you have to challenge yourself to express yourself in different ways.
Right.
Like you're a writer. You like to write. I can't stand to write. But you're a writer.
Right.
So, when it comes down to conversating in that way, I'm the talker. I love to run my mouth, when it comes down to certain things. So no matter whether or not you're talking one-on-one, whether or not you're writing in different kind of correspondence, whether or not that's emails, whether or not that's official letterheads, whatever else that might be, you just make sure that when you're writing, you're expressing yourself clearly and concisely. You're establishing what it is that you're trying to say. You also, when you're speaking in front of people or a group of people, you make sure that you draw on your own stories. There's so many subject matter experts out there in the world today, but there's nothing that's as powerful as you. When you insert yourself into the story, you are far more credible.
Right.
And it's more interesting when you share your life stories and your experiences because they're in your own words, and because it's something that you may have lived and it's your own voice, you're more enthusiastic about what you're talking about. You're sharing something that actually happened to you personally, and it translates as authentic.
Yeah, and I was going to make those points, but you said it. But yeah, you when you personalize and you show that authentic self, it helps people to actually be able to relate and to connect, I should say. And when you're able to connect with people, then that's where it goes into the buy-in. As an entrepreneur, whatever that it goes back to, since we're talking about entrepreneurship tonight, it's about that service and whatever it is that you want to do to serve them as they get to know you and connect, then that builds that relationship.
And, as you get stronger and more confident into your voice, it lessens the fears and the insecurities that you may have had because, practice makes perfect. And with that, as you get stronger, it leads to greater opportunities. You develop a skill set and a self-expression that helps break down some of those mental and systemic barriers, and it opens doors that you may have never expected to walk through. And when you're comfortable with expressing yourself in your own voice, in your own words, it becomes so much easier to speak on a stance, to speak on your position, because you're expressing your truth. And there's nothing that's more powerful than that.
Yeah, there's such a level of confidence that you build up by just getting outside of that comfort zone, and truly embracing your voice and not being afraid to share your voice, that unique voice.
And on that note, that concludes the first half of the Hiram Connection. We'll be right back after the short break.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Hiram Connection with your hosts, Unique
and Janice. With today's topic, we're talking about the power of your voice. Now, Unique, it's easy sometimes to think that what we think don't matter, and that could drastically affect our voice and how we portray what we're trying to get across.
Right.
We can get that small fish in a big pond mentality, and that fear starts to take control. And so with that being said, it's easy to believe, if you have that mentality, that your voice can be drowned out,
right,
and watered down. So, do you have any points that you can share with the audience that could tell them what they can do in order to maintain that strength and that power of the voice?
My simple answer to that question, Janice, is just to encourage our listeners to be confident, bold, and authentic.
Repeat that.
Be confident, bold, and authentic. I believe when you display those characteristics, along with sharing your expertise and your experiences with whomever your audience is, it just helps that message to become clearer. And I believe that it also helps you build more confidence up in what you're doing when you're sharing your unique voice with those individuals. And also, I would say that you would be open to the fact that because of how you're sharing your unique voice, that may also inspire others to do the same. And that reminds me of a quote by Stephen Covey. You know me and my quotes. It simply says, "Find your voice and inspire others to find theirs." It is such a profound quote because I think it's mind-blowing to think about the impact that you can make when you use your unique voice.
And you know, with that, even though in the beginning, when you're starting to find yourself and find that voice, it may not be as strong as you would like it to be. Everything is a graduation.
Right.
So in that process, what I would suggest is very important is to find your village. We've talked about that in various other recordings that we have done. Make sure you surround yourself with people that may be able to assist you. The crazy thing about it is there's so many different resources that we talked about.
Right.
There's classes, there's mentors. You just have to find and tap into that, because although you might not be as strong in that area, by surrounding yourself with those types of people, you can learn those tools and the tricks of the trade that will make you stronger. You can insert yourself into different things such as various industry events and seminars that will be able to give you that step-by-step process that can help you find your voice and help you develop just a stronger sense of self. So with that, yes, it is a profound quote, but just to realize that if you don't feel that confidence right at the beginning, there are different resources that will be able to aid and help you as you develop and as you grow.
And that's true. And I would highly recommend like searching and looking. And one entity, I will say, I didn't necessarily become a member of it, but there's a local Toastmasters group. I attended one of their presentations or one of their structured nights, and it was just so interesting to watch, the individuals who participated in that, and they had certain things they had to write about, and also there was like some little quick I forgot what they called it, like speed write. They gave you a subject and you had to write it and then present it. And I thought that was really cool because of the fact that you realize everybody is trying to improve, on finding their voice so that they can be that speaker or present or whatever it is that they were trying to do. So when you talked about finding a group or an entity, I think that's a really good one. So it's like if you have a local Toastmasters group, I would definitely look into that. And then whatever other maybe speaker networks or whatever the case may be, I think those are great things, great entities to tap into as well.
Ultimately, what I think it boils down to is that we need to realize the power of our voice. Our voice is the mirror of our most inner thoughts.
Right.
It reveals our moods, our fears, our intentions, and our desires. And it is a true reflection of who we really are in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, our voice can be the deciding factor in how successful we are at a task.
Right, in communicating and connecting. And that's what it all boils down to when you're talking about using your unique voice, especially in the realm of using it as an entrepreneur. So you have to convey that to be able to connect, because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to connect for buy-in, and you're trying to connect with people, period, because you want to show that authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, we've come to the end of tonight's episode of the Hiram Connection, and we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And as we always say,
real sisters,
real talk.
Bye.
The Hiram Connection is all over social media. We are currently on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We would like to thank those who are already following us and encourage those who are getting to know us through this podcast to connect with us, because we are very interactive on social media.